So thank you for the introduction, and so happy to be here. I mean, this is such a beautiful place. It's really stunning, and very happy to see that this gives the right context and a good environment for hopefully fruitful, inspirational discussions among all our participants here. So really distinguished guests. I have so many very high-level VIP people in the audience here. I don't want to mention all of them, but let me just highlight some of you. Etienne Schneider, Mario, George, heads of space agencies, my ESA council members, see quite a few in the audience here. Renato as the chair of ESA council, but I see colleagues. I don't want to start mentioning them because I'm sure I forget one somewhere in the audience, but really very happy that you are here. This is a very important event and a very important moment here. And of course, thank you, Ludwig and ESPI team for organizing this. This is quite a venue, quite an event. It really has grown over the years, and what you have done is quite remarkable to bring people together and discuss and see where we can go in the future. So let me address a few points. I said a few things yesterday in my, I would say, off-the-cuff remarks at the evening already, but let me go a little bit deeper on the points of the topic of today, Europe as a space power. So by now, I think your ESPI annual event, the Autumn Conference, is really an established platform and brings together European and international stakeholders to convene and hold a very informed and in-depth discussion on space topics that reach beyond our daily headlines. So what are today's topics? I mean, is Europe a space power? Is Europe a space power today? Does it want to be a space power tomorrow or not? And this is really a question that people are asking, because these are investments that need to be decided, strategies that need to be decided, and this is something that is quite deep. Sometimes I quote the example of information technology. 20 years ago, Europe has maybe missed the opportunity to invest deeply in information technologies, or many aspects of it. Today, the biggest companies in the world are not in Europe. They are in the US, most of them, or in China. And this is something that shows that decisions of today will have an impact not only today, maybe not even today, not even tomorrow. It is really for the future, long-term future, that we have to decide what this means. And space is such a topic of the future. I don't need to explain it to you because you all know it and you are working on it. But if we are not investing today, what will happen? It's a decision that decision makers have to make. And it may be a conscious decision to say, no, we don't need to be there because there are other domains that are maybe more important or more strategic. And I think this is really the question what we have to ask ourselves. Is it a strategic dimension worth investing instead of something else? Because money is always limited, and this is what we are addressing today. So let me give you a few comments from my perspective. First of all, how do we define a space power? It's nice to say we are a space power, or we're not a space power, but how do you define it? It's not only the money, by no means. And it really can be defined in different ways. Let me elaborate on some of them. There's what I would call the hard facts, the hard space power facts, and the soft space power facts that are quite different, but both of them are very important. So the hard space power elements are strength and capacity, autonomy, resilience, determination, a strategy, management skills, political support, and, of course, sufficient funding. The soft space power elements are cooperation, diplomacy, education, communication, and inspiration. And as you see from these words, both are important because one without the other doesn't lead to an increase, and you really need both dimensions. So let me look a bit into Europe as a space power and whether we want to be one. So how does Europe fare in terms of the hard space power elements, so the ones that are related to strength and capacity? What we have, and I think that Europe is actually in a very lucky situation because we have strength. Again, I recall the IT domain. 20 years ago, we were just as good as many other countries in information technology. But as I said, we have decided not to make it a priority, and therefore today we are complaining about it that we are not. In space, what we have today is strength and capacity. We have excellent missions and projects. We have a unique know-how. We have top-notch science and technology, and I think this is undisputed. We are really world leaders in a number of programs, in navigation, in Earth observation, in space science. We are among the best, if not the best. We have a very skillful and a very strong industrial base, and that, of course, is the element that is required in order to be strong. We have a very qualified and a very motivated workforce. It's the people. Very young, very innovative. There is no lack of talent in Europe, and this is certainly something that we should not underestimate and something that needs to be nurtured. And we are good in pushing innovation and commercialization. We have programs and activities on both, commercialization, innovation. We have field labs, we have business incubation centers, investor networks, technology brokers, many programs that we are putting together. Let me talk a bit about autonomy and resilience. We are autonomous to some extent. We have independent access to space. We have restored it. We came out of the launcher crisis, as you would all remember. We have Ariane 6, we have Vega C, we have the European Launcher Challenge that is now starting to be funded and to be implemented. So that means we have guaranteed access to space. That's one of the very fundamental aspects that any space power will need. We are pursuing safety of space assets and services in orbit and on Earth, including cybersecurity, where we are also very good. And we are recognizing the link between space and security, and I just want to mention once more the conference that took place yesterday in Brussels. Very impressive. It's a domain that I have been discussing with my member states, and I really would like to say a big thank you to my member states for the debate we had last year in order to clarify to what extent ESA can or cannot work in security and defense. A year ago, the word defense was forbidden in the ESA Council. Today, we are speaking about it because we have clarified what our convention, our way of working allows or does not allow to do. My member states have asked me to propose a program called European Resilience from Space, which of course has a number of users. It's a dual-use program by nature, but certainly the security and defense community is one of the users, in addition to civil security and many others. Let me say a word on autonomy. Autonomy is absolutely important if you want to build up strength. That is the hard strength that I mentioned before. But also autonomy is important to be an attractive partner for others, within Europe, obviously, but also outside Europe. Just coming back from the IAC in Sydney, Europe and ESA is a very respected space agency. Many space agencies want to work with us. Australia, the government has decided to initiate discussions. They have given a mandate to the Australian Space Agency to negotiate a future framework agreement on cooperation, on stronger cooperation, looking at the model of Canada, which is, and I thank you, Canada, also for being here as a good model of a cooperating state. So we are not only attractive within Europe, but also to countries like Japan, like Australia, like Canada, like Korea, like the UAE, like India, and several others. And that's also nice to see because it shows that we deliver success, we are respected, and we are a reliable partner for future cooperations. Of course, we always work with the United States, but we know that this cooperation at the moment is awaiting some important decisions to see how this or some of the elements will progress. Let me say a word on determination and strategy. We have expressed our ambition in Europe. Some of you know very well the Agenda 2025, which I tabled and developed with my member states 4 years ago. And ambition and raising the ambition for Europe is one of the key elements in all the aspects of space. We have just this year adopted a space strategy 2040, again developed with the member states. And thank you, member states, for having developed it and having expressed your ambition not only for next year or the next 4 years, but for the next decades. And I think this document is really showing where Europe wants to go, of course, always if we have the money and if we have the funding and the political support. Space is also at the service of overarching political goals, from well-being to job creation to climate change. There are many domains that we are supporting with our space missions. But also something where Europe is good and strong is our management skills. We are quite unique in our expertise in terms of managing complex projects, large-scale complex projects that involve all the countries or most of the countries, thousands of people across Europe, dozens of companies on each project, and this is a strength. We are working also very well with the European Union, our partner giving political direction and strategy and funding, medium to long term. Extremely important elements that we do. Of course, I need to mention when I say EU that we have 3 countries that are not members of the EU with whom we have a very strong and very clear relationship and very strong supporters of ESA. We have very strong established links with industry. We know the industry extremely well, how they develop and how they develop into the future. Of course, everyone has Bromo in the mind when I talk of industrial policy and evolution. That's something that will keep us very busy. What does Bromo mean for Europe in terms of competitiveness, industrial chain, supply chain, ensuring autonomy, resilience of the European system, ecosystem? I'm not giving you the answer right now, but I can tell you that we are on top of it, and we will discuss this with our member states to see how Europe will develop, and maybe ESA adjust some of its industrial policy elements in order to make sure that Europe remains competitive and excellent in industrial terms. Decision-making is always done with member states. I've mentioned it before. We have, of course, in the ESA system, the council, the delegate bodies. We have daily interactions. I'm really happy to have this constructive spirit because it's you, member states, who are shaping ESA. It's you. The agency is your agency, and you're shaping it, and we are here to implement your decisions and your funding that you provide in the various ministerial conferences. But also, we have a good, well-established system of principles, from industrial policy to competition rules and many other elements that have made us strong over the last 50 years. Political support, of course, is necessary and is absolutely fundamental, and I'm very happy to see some politicians in the room here as well, and ministers and previous ministers, and George, your participation at the last ministerial conference was fundamental for the role of the UK, and thank you for that, the very strong support you gave. So we do have support at the highest political level. In some countries it goes all the way to the Prime Minister, to the presidents of countries, and they are getting more and more engaged because space has become a topic that addresses a lot of issues across society, not only in the space domain, but from education to transport to energy to climate to many policy domains. And we have good relations with decision makers, partnerships, relevant institutions, and we are explaining how to add value to many of these domains. Of course, funding is an issue, and I will come back to this a bit later. How does Europe fare in the soft power domain? Cooperation and diplomacy in particular. Again, of course, space inherently is global by nature because the satellites fly across the globe, but also many space agencies are working together on different elements. I've mentioned the ISC just before. And Europe does work well and cooperate well with the space actors worldwide. As I said, this is a unique selling point. It's not only for technology cooperation, it's also an element of diplomacy and establishing Europe as a continent, as a set of countries that has something to offer that other countries want to have and to work with. We have partnerships with all the space agencies worldwide. Some of them are individual one-to-one, like in Japan. We have just yesterday opened the Tokyo office for ESA because we want to strengthen cooperation with Japan. But we also have cooperations at regional level with Africa. I've seen our colleagues from the African Space Agency, voila, right here. We have very good relations with the South American colleagues, with the United Nations being located right here in Vienna. And we are quite often also driving the agenda there. So we are, on international space policy, quite involved in also setting the agenda through the UN context, through our own initiatives, Zero Debris Charter as an element, and ESPI also is playing a very, very important role in doing exactly that. Also, education is a very important aspect in the soft power domain. Many activities that we are doing to train and to prepare tomorrow's workforce, to attract people into technology domains, STEM disciplines, through a number of activities we have, ESA, ESA Academy, cooperation with universities, student days, app camps, social media, many other levels of engagement that we have. Because it is important to engage people early in their career, early in their stages. And here I'm, of course, referring to the young people, to the kids who are loving space and dinosaurs, and I hope that they stay also with space and not only with dinosaurs. Of course, sometimes you can even combine it. But this is really something where we would like to make sure that people are prepared in order to build up skills for the 21st century. Maybe a word on communication and inspiration. This is a central goal of our strategy 2040. It's goal number 5, Inspire Europe. This is a very important aspect, and this means the public, the policymakers, the decision makers, everyone who is involved in raising the awareness and funding some of the activities. Of course, we have some high visibility events that make this easier. Launches of rockets and launches of satellites is always a moment that is very emotional and is very convincing for anyone who is questioning the purpose of space after attending a rocket launch live in French Guiana is quite a moment which I think is showing the complexity but also the achievements that we can have. And astronauts are playing a very important role as ambassadors, not only doing experiments in the space station but also ambassadors of space overall. So Europe is ticking many boxes which I just mentioned, but there's still a far way to go. And I've yesterday evening mentioned some of the aspects, how we fare and where we stand in the global space race, if you may call it this, and where Europe is, how Europe is doing in this. And this means that we should not just copy what others are doing. It would be just too simple to say the US is doing that and therefore let's do exactly the same. It doesn't work in Europe, as you know very well. Europe is quite different in its mentality, in its culture, in its number of countries, the system that we have, much more. It has advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes people say, look, the US has it so easy. They have one NASA, they have one government, one president, and everything is decided right there. I can tell you that Europe has its strength with its multiple countries, and I see that. When I meet, I take NASA as an example. As you know, NASA at the moment is going through a transition, is changing policy and is changing funding allocations. In Europe, once we agree on some cooperations, and I think Walter knows it very well, we are sticking to our obligations and we deliver. We deliver what we promise. And even if one of our countries does not have a government right now or is changing government, we still deliver because we have 23 countries which were agreeing on something that was signed by a Director General, my predecessor or myself, but this is a commitment not of me, it's a commitment of all the countries because these are decisions of the ESA Council. That means all the countries have agreed to a cooperation or to a contribution, and that's very strong. Today we have a few countries where there are elections or transitions of government. The UK just got a new reshuffling of the portfolios with a new minister. In the Netherlands, there are elections happening in a few days. We have in Germany, we just had a new government coming into shape and now taking ownership. In France, as you know, the government was changing just recently, a few days ago. Still, despite these changes that happen politically, we are acting, we are delivering, and we have a stability that is quite strong. So sometimes when I say ESA is complicated, yes it is complex to reach decisions, but it's also very strong because this basis of 23 countries in this case is very strong, is very solid, and we deliver to Japan, to India, to the UAE, with whoever partner we agree to work with in terms of our commitment. So this is a strength, it's a strength. So what is the way forward in terms of our role, in terms of cooperation, inclusiveness, but also in general? We are steering a clearly defined course of action. I mentioned we have Agenda 25, we have ESA Strategy 2040, we have a central role of ministerial conferences which are defining every few years the priorities. And if I say priorities, of course, in terms of content, but also funding. Without funding, you're not implementing any of these priorities. And we should not underestimate the importance of this ministerial conference. It really is a milestone. In terms of timing, I think it's perfect. Geopolitics is changing very fast. And right now, decisions need to be made and projects need to be initiated. We cannot wait for the next EU MFF in 28. We cannot wait for the next ministerial in 28. There is no other European funding decision made, at least at European level. Nationally, of course, they are made on a regular basis. So this is really a crucial moment to prepare for other funding decisions in the future, because what we do now today in ESA will also impact or will also influence the MFF decisions and discussions. Will also impact, obviously, our own ESA ministerials in the next, in 3 years from today. And there are many points that we are addressing. Climate change always will remain a top priority. Climate change is or Earth observation, I should say, is our largest program. 30% of our budget in ESA is allocated to Earth observation. We are strong, we are good, we are leading, and we have to continue doing that. Space hazards is another one. I mentioned Hera and Ramses as examples where we are engaging very strongly. The next goal, the second goal of our strategy 2040 is explore and discover. Again, on exploration and on discovery, that means space exploration, astronauts, moon, Mars activities, but also further beyond, that means Jupiter, Euclid and similar missions are our future. And there we are strong and we are preparing the future. Number 3, independent access to space, autonomy and resilience as keywords. Again, we are preparing programs at the ministerial. Access to space, launchers is #1 priority, but also defense and space, ERS as an activity is preparing our resilience and autonomy, but also technology developments that we need to make sure that we have the technology that we need for future challenges and future missions. Number 4, positioning Europe as a commercial hub, commercialization. Again, we are having concrete elements and programs. The ESA Investors Network has 75 venture capital companies and banks that are now attracting money from outside the space community. But of course, we need our public funding in order to get money into the space community. And as I mentioned, goal number 5, inspiring the young generation, inspiring Europe, which is key. Of course, there is the importance of sufficient funding. I mentioned yesterday that our share of global funding is 10%. Our economic strength is more than 20% if you put all these member states and Canada as a cooperating state together. So we are below half of what we could, based on our economic strength, invest in space. The United States invests 6 times as much as Europe. That means they are recognizing this as a strategic domain. They overinvest compared to their global share of the economy, which is great, but which also shows that they have declared this as a priority. So what can be your contribution, our contribution collectively? Of course, Europe needs full support in all domains. I have a ministerial in front of me. In less than a month, we are hopefully relieved and celebrating a success, but this is still a lot to be done in the last couple of days and weeks. So thank you, delegates, and I really look at my member states who are deeply negotiating day and night and with all kinds of stakeholders to make this a success. Your support is the support of Europe. It's not only your country, it's the support of Europe, obviously also reflected back into the country's priorities. I thank you in advance. I know there's still a lot of work to be done, but really this is what we need to do together because we need to strengthen Europe for all the reasons I just mentioned before. But also industry. Industry is playing a crucial role because all we do is spent through industrial contracts. Without a strong industry, we're not going anywhere. And this is something that we have to keep developing and moving forward. And we have done it, I think, well over the last 50 years. We have to keep doing it for the next decades and 50 years because this is our basis on which we are building it. Institutions, national institutions, European institutions, European Commission, ESA, and many other bodies are at your disposal and at your service in order to make this happen. Don't forget science. Science will always drive excellence, and this is something that we we need to support, we need to increase, and this is something that also I'm proposing at the ministerial conference, to increase the science program itself, the space science program, but also science-oriented activities. And global partnerships, as already mentioned, which we need to do together. ESPI can play a key role in this. You are a very respected think tank. ESPI is delivering good ideas and good inputs. You are engaging with many stakeholders. You are raising awareness. You are advising decision makers, but also the general public. Please work with the general public, because, as always, the general public needs to be aware in order for decision makers to have the basis and the foundation based on which decisions and support can be made. And global outreach, or outreach in general, which is extremely important. And I think there are some points which I would like to also ask ESPI to really look into it, in addition to all the political dimensions that have been raised. Quite often I'm asked by a minister, when I try to explain why to invest in the ministerial, he or she is saying, yes, I like space, it's fantastic, very exciting, but I have to fight my colleagues who have to support kindergartens, health service, roads, the railways, and all the infrastructure, and all the other domains in the country. So please, and this is a call for help to ESPI, please help us to explain, why do I need space? Why do I need space more than anything else? What makes space so unique? What does space do for me? For me as a citizen, not as Director General of ESA, but as a citizen out on the street, who have no idea of space, who doesn't want to know about space, but why is space so fundamental? We have to show how space is a crucial element of the infrastructure and of future life, of our living standard, of our security, of our way how we work together. Sometimes, yesterday I mentioned a few examples. When you wake up in the morning, you already use space. When you walk through the day, you use space 10 times on different occasions without knowing. But we have to make this visible, that people understand that. And this is something I really would like you to help us in the argumentation, and you are very smart and very clever in finding all these argumentations, in addition, obviously, to address big policy questions as we are doing it. So these are my remarks as a stimulus, as an introduction, but I really would like to say thank you to all of you here, being in the room. Thank you to ESPI for organizing this so well, and I think only together we can be strong and move Europe forward, elevate Europe through space, and therefore go towards becoming a space power. I think it's a bit, I would say, arrogant to say that we are the space power. We are one of the space powers in the future, but we have to really keep working on it, not to lose our status as a center of excellence, and making space, helping us develop Europe, develop the countries, and develop citizens. Thank you so much.